My college roommates and her friends would eat all of my food, so they ate brains. When I first moved into my dorm sophomore year, my roommate Jess seemed pretty cool. She was studying psychology and always had her textbooks spread out on her desk. But the first red flag should have been when she asked if I minded sharing food. I said sure, thinking she meant like splitting a pizza every now and then. That was my first mistake. Within 2 weeks, I noticed my groceries disappearing. My leftover Chinese food, gone. The energy drinks I bought for finals week, vanished. The fancy cheese my mom sent me, completely cleaned out. At first, I thought maybe I was just eating more than I remembered, but then I started keeping track. I confronted Jess about it and she got all defensive, saying I was being paranoid and that roommates share stuff. But then her 3 friends, Hannah, Chloe, and Becca, started hanging out in our room constantly. They'd raid my mini fridge like it was their personal cafeteria. I'd come back from class and find them eating my yogurt and crackers while watching Netflix on my laptop. I tried talking to Jess again, but she just shrugged and said her friends were going through tough times financially. I felt bad for like 5 seconds until I realized they were wearing designer clothes and ordering DoorDash every other night. They weren't broke, they were just cheap. So I started hiding my food in a lockbox under my bed, but somehow they figured out my combination and cleaned me out again. When I asked Jess how they got into my box, she claimed she had no idea. That's when I knew she was the one telling them. I was spending like $200 a month on groceries just to feed 4 people. My parents were getting suspicious about my food budget, and I was basically living off campus dining hall scraps. I had to do something drastic. That's when I remembered my anatomy lab from last semester. We had to dissect sheep brains for our neuroscience unit, and I still had contacts with the lab coordinator. I texted him asking if he had any extra specimens I could borrow for a personal project. He said he had some pig brains that were about to expire anyway. I picked up 3 pig brains and brought them back to my dorm. I carefully wrapped them in plastic and put them in Chinese takeout containers, the kind Jess and her friends always went for first. I wrote my name on them in big letters and put them right in the front of my mini fridge. Then I waited. The next day I had a late class, so I didn't get back to my room until around 9 p.m. As soon as I opened the door, I heard retching sounds coming from our bathroom. Jess was hunched over the toilet throwing up while Hannah was dry heaving into the sink. Chloe was sitting on my bed looking green and Becca had apparently already left. Hannah looked up at me with tears in her eyes and croaked out, "What the hell was in those containers?" I acted all confused and asked what she was talking about. That's when Jess stumbled out of the bathroom and started screaming at me, saying I tried to poison them. I calmly explained that those were pig brains I was using for my anatomy project, and I'd clearly labeled them with my name. Chloe started gagging again and asked why they tasted so weird. I told her that's probably because they were preserved in formaldehyde and weren't meant for human consumption. The look of horror on their faces was absolutely priceless. Jess threatened to report me to the RA, but I pointed out that she'd basically have to admit to stealing my food. Plus, I had texts from the lab coordinator proving the brains were for legitimate academic purposes. She couldn't really argue with that. Hannah and Chloe ran out of the room and I never saw them in my dorm again. Jess barely spoke to me for the rest of the semester, which was honestly perfect. She moved out over winter break and I got a single room for the spring.